All right. Welcome everyone. Today we will be looking at a tutorial for Vexillology, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, or flag making. Now this can be useful for Heartfire, of course, but you can also use it for world building in general. If you're just creating a new country, like an old history country, or you're creating a new fantasy country, or even an intergalactic space empire of Dundee, for example. um, you could totally make a flag for it. Flags are a very good way to showcase what the country is all about. It can add lots of meanings and symbolism to it, especially if it's more like a coat of arms style flag. We'll get to that later, but and of course, flags are just really pretty if you do them right. So, for example, here are some of the flags I've made. We'll dive into a bit more detail for most of them later, but for now, I'll just uh, show you guys how to make your own flag. So, well, what do you need? Step one. What do you need to make a flag? All I use is paint.net really. A link to download that program is in the description. You can of course use another tool to your liking, like for example Photoshop or GIMP or hell even just regular paint if you're particularly skilled, but I prefer paint.net. Additionally, I have installed the Align Object plugin, which is very useful if you're trying to place symbols perfectly in the dead center of the flag, for example. It's optional, but it's recommended. A link will also be provided in the description. So yeah, that's really all that you need. So now, step one is going to be color schemes. Colors are the most important things on flags almost. They're the first thing that you register before you can even look at the symbols or the symbolism thereof. You see the colors. There's a couple of reasons why you could choose certain colors. For example, you could look at picking complementing or contrasting colors. There is a website where with an interactive color wheel Canva. A link will be produced. Again, will be available in the description below. You could use that to see what colors complement each other really well. You can also just experiment with Paint.net's own color wheel, which is what I do. I just slap something on the field of white and I slap something else. And this looks ugly, but I like that yellow, so we just select that with the magic wand. We just uh, fill in a new color and we just start rotating it around until we find a color that we like. For example, that's Ukraine. I feel like a dark green could work, perhaps. Yeah, this isn't too bad. For example, like I believe that's also a flag. Actually, I wouldn't know what, but it looks like a real life flag. At any rate, that is some stuff that you can experiment with until you find something that looks cool. If you have some symbolism in mind already, you can use that. Historical connotations could be very important, very useful for this. For example, here I have the flag of what is more or less a Roman Empire XP. So naturally, I used gold and purple since that's colors that, in combination, people tend to associate with imperial regalia, and Rome to extend the laurels add to this even more. Uh, Another one, this is, for example, a flag of a peasant republic, so naturally I use red and gold because, you know, Soviet Union references, that can help a lot. Yeah, that's just a matter of experimenting, really. You can Google a bit, like, you can Google some historical flags of things you would associate with the flag of the country or the polity that you're creating, see what they use in the flag, and just go from there if you are kind of lost. So I have already prepared a sample flag that we shall be making today, which I shall be referencing, and I have made a little palette of the colors that we're going to be using here. This is going to be a flag of National Bolshevik Bonapartist France, making it for a friend of mine who is making a very memey Heartfire forum of wacky Tsarist fuckery. Go check it out. I'll provide a link to his Reddit in the description as well. It's shaping up to be absolutely hilarious. It's gonna have NazBols fighting ANCAPs, I believe, fighting radical centrists, fighting positists, so it's going to be glorious. So let's start. Well, we'll need a white background because it's the French, of course. We're going to start with white background. I'm sorry, I'm joking. Please don't kill me, French people. Let's see. So we're going to do equal parts. Oh, for I forget, I tend to work with a 1500 by 1000 rectangle for my flags because it's nice and big. I should put a lot of detail. And if you want to print it out, like have it printed on actual flag at some point, it's better to have this than standard paradox resolutions or flags, which is 80 by 120 or something. It's incredibly small and not really doable to upscale that. So let's see, just bottom, in the bottom left here, you can see the area of your selection. So we want a 1500 by 333 area. There we go. And we'll make that blue because, of course, red, white, and blue are associated with, well, so many countries in the world. I think is by far the most common color combination. Make this 333 by 1500 as well. Then the middle part will be 334, but because that's the middle area, it will still be symmetrical and even, and it's only a single layer of pixels, so we're not particularly going to use that. So we have our color scheme here. Don't worry, we'll get the red in there at the end. But I tried to fit in another way that didn't really work, so we're going to simply include that on a symbol. So now that you have your basic colors, it's time to move on to symbols and symbolism. Now, something very important to keep in mind here is what time period this is set in. If you're looking more at a medieval, feudal type of flag, like for example, most of the flags here, you'll be looking at something that's more a coat of arms than really a flag, because nations as a concept didn't really exist. You had mostly just had royal noble houses and their coats of arms that were used. The Holy Roman Empire's coat of arms, for example, is a very classic example. So then you'll be able to make flags like these and these. If you're looking at something more modern, like post the birth of nationalism and republicanism, you'll be looking more at a flag like this one, like tricolors, like what we would really recognize as flags. For example, this is a republic that was birthed out of the overthrow of the tyrannical monarchy of this, so they shifted from the flag of the monarchy, which was more a coat of arms style flag, to a republican, modern, nationalist tricolor. So that's something to keep in mind if you're looking for symbolism. If you're going for a more coat of arms style flag, it's generally fine to go a bit heavier on the symbols on the flag, though you still don't want it too crowded. Like, I'd say 3 major elements tops, and even then it's kind of crowded. For example, we have this flag here of a horde of religious more or less Satanists, nomadic horde. We have a crown, we have a claw coming up from a rift, and that's it on the flag, and it's already a fairly busy flag. Or there we have, for example, with a burning tree, you have the tree, you have the flame, and you have the triangle in which the tree is located. So that's, again, it's already a fairly crowded flag, and you don't really want to add much more to this. If you want to see some good examples of bad flags that are way too crowded, flags of counties, states, boroughs, what have you, like local entities tend to have slightly less professional flags. So that's the time period. Another thing that's really good for symbols is you can show national identity. There are 3 important types of national identity. We have culture. So, for example, we have the nation of SSolbergj, which is a technocracy run by gnomes. That's all about. It's basically just one island with a giant tower full of mad scientists in it. So their flag is literally just a giant cogwheel. Innovation, progress, the stuff you associate with cogwheels, machines, technology. So yeah, they just have a giant cogwheel as their flag. It's fairly straightforward symbolism. The Grandmaster's realm, for example, is this one is actually a bit of the working backwards. I decided that this was a cool look for a flag with a black gargoyle on it, and then I decided that like the professional soldiers in the realm would be referred to as black gargoyles. So you can also just do what looks cool and then build the country from that. But if you already have an idea of your country's national identity, you can also work from that. Furthermore, you have ideology. Flags are a very good way to show your ideology. The swastika of Nazi Germany and the hammerstick of the Soviet republics spring to mind as the classic examples, of course. So, for an example of that, we have this flag, which is also from Ordoria, but after they've been overthrown by a revolutionary group that's more or less based on the Diggers movement and the Gragas brothers, like populist social democratic feudal peasants, essentially. But we have their precious little tree being shattered by a rose, which together with bread is the symbol of these rosite radical republicans. So we have the rose of the rosites destroying the tree of Ordoria, which shows the ideology of this country. Or, for example, we have the flag Varinthius, the Roman Empire XP. The Puritan flag is more or less the same, except instead of purple, they're using black for a more aggressive contrast. We all know people with black and gold on their flag are very, very odd and should be kept away from at all times. Also added a cavalier knight type person in the middle to show that we're like really going to be very aggressive, expansionist, reclaiming our empire even more than this flag already indicates. So that's a good way to show ideology of flags. The final one is religion. Again, going back to the flag of the Kogo nomads. They worship Damokigel, a demon that lives in the underrealms, and hands and claws reaching up from under the earth to seize what are very common in this country. Their shrines tend to just essentially be an outstretched palm in which they place all sorts of sacrifices. So claws are very important religious symbolism for rising up from the ground in Kogo religion, which is why we have a claw rising up from a fissure in the ground, and then to signify that they are led by a king, their high chieftain. I added a crown. Let me grab the religious flag, like the flag of one of the theocrats take over, for example, is exactly the same except minus the crown. So that's how you can use religious symbolism as well. So for this flag, we have three major symbols that we will be using. The eagle of Napoleon, of the Bonaparte family's coat of arms. We'll be using the Fleur-de-lys, which Napoleon is very, very associated with, of course. And we'll be using this abomination that I made to represent NazBol ideology. I regret it cost me physical pain to make this, but it looks damn good. So these are the three ingredients we'll be using. We'll be copying this boy and pasting it. Oh, if you want to make a new layer, obviously, paste that here. I'm going to be using align object to get it dead center. If you don't have the align object plugin, you'll just have to eyeball it, kind of. You can just look at like what the exact middle is of your flag. So that would be here, roughly. You kind of have to just eyeball it, like, you want to be in the middle of about 500 by 750. You will have like the center here of your image. We'll kind of eyeball it, but I really recommend just getting an align object. It makes your life a lot easier. So then let me grab my reference image. We want to grab the hammer and the fascist and sickle. Slap that in. Don't worry about the white outside. You won't be seeing that. I'll put that here. What we want to do is just select the middle part, and again, you want to align the object. You want to put it vertical, so it's like vertical axis. And what you then want, of course, you need to select the correct layer. It's perfectly vertical. What you then want to do is grab. Let's see. How do I do that? I decided to just grab the entire thing minus 100 pixels. Okay, well that's not going to work. So just grab this side minus 100 pixels, so we'll have 1000 by 400. There we go. And we'll just align object it horizontally to the side, because it the one annoying thing about line object is that it will put like all the way at the extreme edge of your selection, like down to the pixel. So it's not really perfect for if you want to put something like in this area, for example. So we'll just put it here. And you'd have to move it manually, which is still easier, but it's still annoying. And we'll grab the second one and repeat the process. Select it here, and we'll get a selection of 1000 by 1400 again, and then this time we'll align it to the left, of course. And there we go. It's already shaping up to be a nice flag. We'll add a final touch though, the Fleur-de-lys, which we shall put up here, and we should put it on the breast of the eagle. As a matter of fact, we should just align it dead center. But we shall not do that, actually. That doesn't look good at all. Something like the thing is, it aligns it dead center, but that doesn't take into account the overall shape. We'll essentially treat it like a square and slap it in the middle, without regard for what like the middle of the core of the center of the core image is. Essentially, that may sound confusing, but for example, if I were to draw this line here, then it would, for example, just take this as its as the box in which it would take. Sorry, it would take this as the box in which it should place the Fleur-de-lys, and it would place it like somewhere here. So sometimes you do need to exercise your own judgment a little bit, but it's not, that should be doable. I'll just select nice red, because red, white, and blue, flag of the tricolor France. Want to smooth that out a little bit. There we go. Now this is already a relatively good looking flag. However, if you want a bit of a glowing effect, like what I've done here, I find that in Heartfire specifically helps quite a bit with anti-aliasing. What you want to do, say we want to do that with the eagle, what you want to do is copy it, paste it in a new layer, select the, repeat it. You want to take the middle layer, you want to use a Gaussian blur on it, so it's like a little bit blurred. I believe then we'll take the top layer, I believe, just fool around a bit, see what works. Something like, yeah. Let's put it on additive, make it a bit see-through. And let's mess with the bottom layer. Essentially, just try and mess. I encourage you to just try messing around with layers. They can definitely add a fun little layer to your flags. Alright, and then we have a slightly glowing eagle, but you don't have to. If you want like a more modern, very rigid flag, you can go with this. I personally tend to prefer giving a slight glow to most objects, so we'll just do that for everything here. And we load the middle one, set this one to additive. It doesn't always, you don't always want to use additive, you just kind of need to look around a bit, see what looks right. See, and then this one generally you will want to have. Ooh, that looks interesting. That looks like it's been emblazoned on there. That's pretty cool, actually. Yeah. Final note: if you are using multiple layers with different layer techniques, you don't want to just start layering down from the top, because then you'll get this. It will just apply the top layer's rules to everything. What you want to do instead is just take the second bottommost layer, layer that down, and just go from there. That won't mess with your that won't mess with the layer settings, and we'll just keep it as it is. Let's just quickly do it for. Let's see if this would work, because there's like lots of thin lines on the fascist and sickle, so I'm not entirely sure if this is going to be working, but we can always give it a go. Not entirely convinced this is going to work properly. Blur this one. Sometimes you just want to make it less opaque though. No, it needs to do need that slightly later there, which I want to be obvious, so we'll just set that there. And color dodge. And this is alright. Just enough of a hint of the white to make it dark, not additive. That just takes it out of focus. Color burn, color. That just makes it unsharp. That doesn't really work on here. Perhaps we should decrease the opacity on the glow a little bit. What if we messed with this one instead? Okay. Slightly reduce that. Let's see if we can get any more. Ooh, that looks nicer. That's great. There we go. And we have a glorious NazBol Bonapartist French flag. Now, don't worry. The last glow parts, adding this anti-aliasing measure is optional if it's not what you like. For example, this flag works perfectly fine without any sort of shading whatsoever. This one's too. I have uses on this one for a tree and here for flower. Here for the laurels, but here I again haven't used it at all, so it's optional. Now, don't forget to save your work. I keep forgetting if I should save as PNG or JPEG. I think it was PNG. We'll just see what has the hype. So we'll go for Napoleon. That is small, and we'll try JPEG 2 for good measure. This one is bigger, I think. Alright, I'll also save it as a direct raw surface because that shit's just quality. See, sorry. And with that, we have a gorgeous flag. So yeah, this has been the tutorial. I hope you guys have learned something. Again, links to relevant information will be in the description. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll answer as soon as I can. And have fun making flags.